increased my meetings, conference and meetings, $5,000, because this year the city will be hosting the first time ever Mayor's Conference.
Yay.
So Oregon mayors from all over will be coming to Lebanon at the end of July. So.
Good.
And this is Councilor Bowen's opportunity to ask for his raise.
I'll defer that, even though I deserve it, Linda.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
I would
all
like.
I have.
I would like to see at some point a raise for the mayor position in Lebanon. I would like council to have a discussion on that. I just think it is
I think it's been about 5 years.
pretty consuming
right, and it was just the mayor's
role
at that time.
if you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
So, not council. I don't.
Okay with that?
Did you want to talk about that at this time, or?
I don't really. Well, it's up for discussion. I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I would like to move to the $1,000. Not move as in a motion, but I would like to move to the $1,000 level. I just turned mine off to see if it was mine, and it's not.
It's Boland's.
Me.
It's Boland.
Take that. I'll just turn it off and be quiet.
Static?
Some kind of fire thing.
It's not me, it's the
It might be
video.
Yep.
I think it's all the metal.
Yep.
Okay, you have to be quiet then, Jason.
Perfect.
All right. Yes, it is.
Is anybody going to chime in on that? I had just made a note of that.
It's probably
So-
time to reevaluate all of it as far as.
I have to say, the amount of time that is spent doing city business, representing this town, every hour takes away from his own business that he could be making money. And I think 1,000 is still lower than what.
Bargain.
Yeah, it is. It would be nice to see the budget change to reflect that.
I would support the $1,000 level. I think that time and
Well, after.
consumption of the mayor, this seems to keep increasing.
In a city that is as active and, I mean, we're happening. There's not a small amount of things to do to represent the city as the mayor in this. Lebanon.
Any other discussion?
When was the last time council and mayor fees were increased?
The last time they were increased, I'm not sure which year it was. It's been at least, I think
2006, maybe?
I was going to say 2005, 2006, and at that time the council fees were not increased. The council didn't want theirs increased, but they wanted the mayor's increased.
Anything else?
Gary, how do we stack up against other communities?
Performance-wise,
It varies.
Performance-wise, we do great.
It's a good question. It varies widely across the state. There are several, particularly among small cities, that don't pay anything to their electeds, but then from there, it's all over the board. If you'd like us to do some research on that, we surely could, but that's not something that we've looked at.
So maybe we could budget a little beefier, and then, but not change. Obviously, maybe have that discussion at council level.
Sure. In fact, if the budget committee wanted to pass a motion here for an amount, I'm sure we could figure it out.
And I don't even know that for me, it's not necessarily relevant that what other cities do, because I know the time that Paul puts in here, that's relevant to me. So if other cities cannot afford that and/or don't have the amount of things going on. Lebanon is one of the most happening small towns, so you could have a town our size, but nothing's going on.
That's correct.
So for me,
Also-
that's not even,
It's important not to set a rate based on an individual, though. It's important to set a rate based upon a position and the requirements of it. Because when Paul's gone, not mayor anymore, and you get somebody else in here who is not doing what Paul does, it becomes that about, the position should be what it is, in my opinion. It should have a structured reimbursement fee or whatever it is referred to as, and then if that's evaluated periodically, then that's how that
but if we're paying a mayor $1,000 and the next one doesn't perform well, that's why we have an election.
Voters.
Well, we all know how that works.
Well,
But I think your point's well taken. The community is very active.
Yeah.
The community. And the mayor gets the opportunity to represent that. And since the mayor is elected every 2 years instead of every 4 years, there's an opportunity to have some feedback about the support that
Very
the mayor
often.
gives to the community.
Well, I know just looking back over since 2006 or whenever, the amount of invitations and activities that go on that council people attend and lunches and dinners and invites to has increased drastically.
I hate to say this, I agree with Rebecca.
oh, God.
And I don't think it matters what a study would do as to what mayors are being paid what. Like, Rebecca said it earlier. It's a bargain at $1,000.
Oh, I agree.
Well, that killed me.
Any other discussion? None? Is this something we want to take to council then to decide?
we can
Or
choose that.
is there a motion on
May I
the
make
table?
a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
If this is something that a majority of the committee believes is important, I would encourage you to take an action, and then it would be up to the city council to actually implement a policy, but this would set the stage in the budget for that to happen. If the council then decided not to do it, then the money would just roll over to the next year. But this would set the stage so the council could then make a decision if they decide that's what they want to do.
I
Okay.
move then to approve to increase the mayor's stipend by $500 in the budget
Second.
per month.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Abstain.
motion passes.
I'll abstain.
So real quick, when we go back and figure this number out, that's $500 additional plus benefits. So it's not going to be just a $6,000 change.
Yeah.
Well, they get PERS and
No.
workman's.
The mayor
I
doesn't
wish.
get
Some of them
first.
do.
You give them
Work-
PERS
they get
now,
workman's
Dean?
comp, all this stuff.
I didn't even know
There's a
that.
bunch of other stuff. We do workman's comp, a number of things. We do Social Security,
I believe all it is is
Medicare.
taxes come out.
Yeah, all that taxes stuff. We have to do all that stuff.
If we get any other benefits, I'd like to know about
Me
it.
too.
Yeah, I'll run it next time.
Dean, that's the net. I mean,
Yeah, I took the motion to be this is the salary and any
Plus whatever they get. It's
any results that has on payroll costs will be collateral to this
Exactly.
change.
That is precise.
Yes.
Okay, motion moved and passed, and Linda, anything else? Alrighty, thank you very much. Yeah, I know it. It's her fault. Okay, next would be library services. Carol. Buy dinner now, you know that, right?
Nicely played.
And also with you.
Very well done.
Waiting for someone to do that.
We have a big party tonight at the library. Pages 6.
Is your microphone on? It should be red.
My little red light is on.
Much better.
Page 65 is where the library budget begins. There are no really major changes. There are some increases. Most of the increases have to do with just increases in our costs, with the one exception. The last line, no, second to the last line on page 65, Department Operating Expense 100-165-61250 has been increased by $15,000. We are, this is our primary collection development supplies, everything that we purchase to make materials available to the public. This was decreased from $42,000, which it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and we are working our way back toward fully funding. We will still be taking probably between $10,000 and $15,000 from the Library Trust for operating expenses in this line this year, but that's a substantial increase, or substantial improvement over last year. Our hope is that in another year or so we're fully funded from city funds, so we're working our way in that direction. There's also a fairly significant increase in the transfer to equipment acquisition and replacement, and we have several large ticket items. The biggest one coming up in the immediate future are all of our patron access computers, catalog computers, which are a software as subscription service, and that comes up every 3 years for renewal, and that will be renewing in August. Are there questions?
It's your last time you have to do this, so
It
congratulations.
It is. Thank you. Thank you.
I think I'd like to add a couple of points.
Yes.
First of all, I mentioned in my report that after the beginning of the fiscal year, we're going to take a look at the hours for the library and what it would take to expand those. We've got a pretty good idea of what that will require now, but what we're talking about is expanding the open hours from Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 5 until 7 o'clock. Wednesday's already open until 7 o'clock, so we'd have Monday through Thursday to 7 o'clock, and then we would expand the Saturday hours by another 4 hours, so we have an 8-hour day on Saturday.
By 3 hours, so it would close at 5 o'clock rather than 8
thank you.
o'clock. Yes.
So we're going to be looking at that. It requires some part-time positions, and I'm feeling like we're probably going to be able to do that, but I wanted to make you aware of what that's about. Mm-hmm. And then Councilor Grizzle just mentioned that this is the last time that Carol will be addressing us at the Budget Committee, and her retirement is scheduled for June 30th.
Yes.
As one who, I also got my start in public service through the library, Multnomah County Library, years ago, but I share that love of libraries that Carol has, and we've not had, you could not possibly have a bigger champion for the library than we've had in Carol. And I want to recognize her service to us and encourage everyone to come out for the reception we're going to have for her towards the end of June, and date and time will be announced soon for that. With that, so first of all, thank you, Carol, for your service to our community. Now, beyond that, our process to hire a new library director is well underway. In fact, there will be a meet and greet for the candidates for the new library director on Tuesday, May 23rd, 3 to 5 at the library meeting room. So if you're interested in who the finalist candidates are, please come out Tuesday, May 23rd, 3 to 5, and you'll get a chance to meet these people. The interview panel, which meets the next day, is interested in folks coming to the meet and greet and providing their written comments as they leave the event, so we can then look at those as we interview the people to see what the public's input was. So just want to make you aware of that, and we hope to have a new individual in place in early July. So again, Carol, thank you for your service to our community.
You're welcome. Pleased to be able to serve. There are 3 other funds that fall under the library. The 830 fund, which is the library trust, the 833, which is the Harriman or the Building Trust, and the 838, which is the Snedeker Trust. The Library Trust covers a number of things. It's designed to fund special projects like tonight's May the 4th celebration. It also is where we handle most of our grants. We currently have several going on, which we're finishing up right now. And it also serves as a pass-through for a variety of things. No big surprises or changes there, although we're hoping to use less of that this year or this coming year for collection development and such. The Harriman Trust is specifically designated for building items or for the children's room, additional materials and so forth for that area. And the Snedeker Trust, again, in the will that established that, that is designated for reference materials and, again, materials for the children's room. And no changes in those areas.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hope you enjoy retirement. I've done it twice. Didn't work. Frank?
Non-cop friendly seats here. So we'll be looking at the police department's budget, which begins on page 71. A few changes for increases as far as personnel goes, which Dean's, and we've already mentioned, was the increase in one position for a police officer position. And I couldn't hear your question when I was sitting back there, but.
Yeah, the council, as a part of its strategic plan, endorsed keeping pace with your staffing with community growth.
Correct.
So I think it would be appropriate for the budget committee and the council to understand what the matrix is, what are the indices that you would be using over the years to recommend additional staffing in comparison to matrix that you maintain as a department and city population and those kinds of things, so that we could have a benchmark and understand when those projections might trigger.
Correct. Well, as far as projections and matrix, there's a couple different things that the IACP, which is International Association of Chiefs of Police, OACP, what they recommend is it kind of goes to officers' free time versus tied up time, like long calls and so forth. And what you do is you take the total population, you take the average number of officers, you go from call. It's a big, long mathematical equation, if you will. There's also the second reason, which is you go for the population officers per population per 1,000. So there's a couple different options that I look at. What I can tell you as far as today goes is we haven't had an increase in the police department staffing as far as police officers go for over 5 years. When I first came into this position, which was 3 years, 4 years, depends on when you want to say my correct hire date. We were playing catch up. We had some officers leave, we had some officers retire, so we were constantly playing catch up. Over the last 3 years, I've been working diligently on catching those numbers up. We are finally at a level right now where we've caught up to where we were at 5 years ago, if I'm making sense. So when I talk about population right now as it stands, we've increased population about 5.8% when I'm looking at numbers going. And take that back 5 years ago from May, we were at 15,000 population with the same amount of officers. So we've increased in population. We've increased the vet's home, the college, all these other areas where we've increased. More population means more call load. So several different things that I look at. And moving forward, those are still the things I'll be looking at as far as population growth goes, call load, and not to mention we have a full-time jail too. So is that in a roundabout
Right,
answer your
and I
question?
understand that. And you know, we had, during the jail tour, we talked that
Yeah.
evening about some of those things, the experiences that I shared with you about things that you're going to add to your load there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be appropriate over time for you to continue to share with the council
Oh, absolutely.
what those growth things are,
Mhm.
what you see changes in your metrics, so that when it comes time for the budget, we understand,
Sure.
okay, probably in a year we're going to have to add another position, or 3 years out, if this trend, the matrix continues,
Right.
we're going to need 1.5 officers more, those kinds of things, so that
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
as we continue to deal with the PERS challenge, we have an ability to understand what impact that growth is going to have upon your department and how we balance that throughout the community.
Right, absolutely.
I didn't think about the part that as we have grown different facilities,
Correct.
population isn't the only number to look at.
Right.
Because we're bringing in outside people
Right.
on a regular basis to the different events or different locations that we now have in our community.
Right. And you look at, Cheetah Lake, as beautiful as that park is, we went from having one Pirates Festival to now we have 3 coming into town. And those take resources, those take time. People come to visit. People are coming to the vet's home to visit. You got college students traveling back and forth. So, yeah, there's a lot of other things.
So that's why I suggested the evaluation of the metrics, because it's not just population that plays into those factors.
Yeah, and truly what I look at is what the community needs are, and then I look at my metrics if that makes sense. So, I look at traffic issues, I look at drug issues. Those are one of the first things that I start looking at, and how are we responding to those calls, and how many of those calls are coming in, and can I keep up with that number? Looking back, again, we've been playing catch-up. I'm very proud to sit in here in front of you today and say we're finally at a level where we finally were able to get caught up, and I just put a motor officer back on the street starting on the 1st. So please be careful going home today and tomorrow. So
actually, given the level of activity,
yeah.
2 things that I see that you need to be applauded for. One is you didn't come asking for more, because I was thinking 2 more at least, as opposed to 1. But with the thing that I really like that I've seen transform over the last couple of years is you've been able to stabilize the department. We had so many people coming and go. It was like a turnstile for a while, and it's stable now. We have continuity in the department. When you deal with officers, you know the people, and they know the community, and that's just a huge plus for the livability of what we have here. And I was wondering do you have any idea, just out there, how many we see transient population coming through? I know when I was at an MP at Fort Lewis, we had 75,000 that were actually living on the base. But on any given day, we had 110,000 that were on the base because of people coming into work and that kind of a percentage.
I don't. I know with like the Lowe's distribution center, and again, all these other areas that I've mentioned, there has been an increase, which we can all see in traffic.
Yep.
It used to be you could go from one end of town to the other, and it'd take you 2-3 minutes. Now it takes you a good while just to get from one end to the other, just from the increase in volume of traffic.
So we've got 1. what do your projections say, and what would you say if money was no object? It is, but if it wasn't, what would you say we should be at right now?
Where I would say we'd be at is at least three more officers. I'd love to get to where I have a 5-man shift, which is a sergeant and 4 officers. But again, you also think about the jail. Where do I want to be at with the jail? Right now I only have 1 officer who is dual certified working inside the jail, that's 40 hours a week. That means 40 hours a week I don't have to have an officer come in off the road to check on the inmates, to feed them, to perform work release or anything like that. So putting the numbers up to where I have an additional officer per shift would allow that flexibility and allow for better coverage in the jail, and also better coverage, more proactivity out within the community. What we've been seeing the last couple of years, we try to be as proactive as possible, but we there for a while were reactive, which means the only thing we had time to do was to respond to calls. We're on average right around 1,200 to 1,500 calls per month. You start divvying that up per officer, and that's when I have all my officers, when they're not out sick, training, vacation, or whatnot. That's quite a load on officers. So to answer your question, where I see us going is an additional 3 positions.
Thank you.
In addition to the one.
In addition to the one, yes. The one position that I'm asking for right now, I'm going to be utilizing within our jail and possibly onto the traffic as well. It just depends on kind of where we can go. One of the things I'm looking at with my jail is to start a work release program where we're actually taking our guests, if you will, from our jail and going out and fixing, mowing, and so forth. So that's something me and Jason are going to be working through as we progress into this. But I'd like to see where we go.
It's important to point out, you had a good point that you spoke to, but it's important to point out that one of the things that's important with retaining good employees, and we have good cops right now, we have great cops right now, but if you can't provide them with the support on duty that they need, and you can't provide them with a competitive wage and benefit package, and you live in an area like this where you're surrounded by other communities that can, those guys will pack up and go to Corvallis, they'll go to Albany, they'll go to Salem, and they'll do the same job with more help and a better wage and better benefit package because they're smart guys. Who wouldn't do that?
Yep.
We've got to stay competitive, and the big part of burnout, whether it's cops or fire, is the call load. And if you don't have the help on the call load, it doesn't matter how much they're paying you, it's not worth it.
That's right.
When you go home ground to a pulp every night or every morning. So I really hope you do continue to push for what you feel are the proper levels, because I know it's important, and I want to keep the great police officers that we have here.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose them somewhere else.
No, and I couldn't agree with you.
I know we've lost some already.
We have. We have. Not too many as far as we lost a couple. One went to DOJ a few years back. One went to a smaller agency. It's interesting, when I was talking to the officer that went to the smaller agency, why did you leave? It was the call load, and the fact that on any given shift he was working, it was just him and another guy. Sometimes would have three officers. That was a few years ago. We've made some corrections and some changes as we've moved forward. But to hear that an officer went from this agency to a smaller agency because of the volume of call load that he was having to deal with it kind of hit home right there. So, yeah, we do. We have the best of the best, and I blame it all on the leadership of the department.
It's something else.
But honestly, we do have some of the best officers working within this community. Some of the things that they've been able to do with the staffing levels that we have has been truly amazing, and that's something to consider. I mean, if you look at where we're at right now and what we've been able to do, think about it in terms of you start adding positions to that, what we're going to be capable of doing. So.
Well, and keep in mind, when we lose an officer that's trained up and everything else, there's an expense to that the city put out
a time frame
for that officer, it costs us less as a city to give them more up front and keep them and stabilize the department than
Absolutely.
it does to bring someone in off the streets and take them from square one through all the training, the education, the FTO time, and everything else.
Right.
It just makes more sense, and you get a more stable department.
Yeah, on average, it takes about a little over a year when you hire from a brand-new officer. Even if they're have some experience as a reserve officer, it takes about a year to get them trained up to what level they need to be at to be on their own and to be a productive member.
And it still really takes a couple of years until they're effective.
Yeah, and it
I mean,
takes,
really.
but like I said, we've been able to hire some of the best around, and which is huge. You look at other agencies all around us, you look at all the agencies that surrounds Lebanon, and I can guarantee you every agency head's going to tell you we're still short. We're still short on positions. Here in Lebanon, we don't have that issue. We're short, yes, but I've filled what I've been allowed to fill, and we've gotten top-notch individuals to fill those positions, and I'm just very fortunate for that. Max.
Yes, sir.
I think it would be appropriate if the chief could provide the council on a quarterly basis with a review of the matrix, so that as those indices are reviewed on a quarterly basis, the budget committee could then see what impact, what growth, what demand is happening, so
Kind of a
that
trend line.
as we start looking at positions in the coming years, we'll have a track record and have some history to base that on.
I think speaking from someone kind of in the same circle, quarterly is a bit much.
Right. It is. I was thinking the same
I think annual is probably your best
I was just going to
tool,
suggest if you could allow me to do an annual one, I would be more than happy.
The quarterly is too short of a snapshot
Yeah.
for that kind of a thing.
And there's a lot of data crunching.
What's that?
At least report out on a quarterly basis. Do your yearly analysis, but break it out by quarters. Because
Anecdotal.
there may be some differences, because of the summer events or.
Yeah, police works like a roller coaster. We have ups and downs, and just like fire, it just depends on what's going on, what's happening. So
You're giving us some updates in the
In this manager's report.
Right.
yeah,
So-
every month what I do, and I break it down each month, and I look at the call load, how many traffic sites, how many reports we're writing. What's our crime level looking like, and not to mention how many people we've had in jail and so forth. So that, I guess, in a way, I provide that information out there to give you guys a little bit of a snapshot as to month as what's going on.
Maybe an interpretation of it from your perspective would be helpful, though.
Yes.
An explanation of what those numbers say.
Sure.
Would be good.
Yeah, and the yearly would be nice to have it maybe like a year in, and we get it at the beginning of the year. That way it's before our budget committee too, and we can actually make decisions that way.
Sure.
So if you're saying that, you've got to have 2 more or whatever it is, then we can actually have some time and can look at it in the budget.
Yeah, and that's no problem. I'd be happy to provide that information at the end of the year. As I do that on my own anyway. I look at the end of the year where we're at, how many calls we had, and so forth. So it usually takes about a month. So I'm usually in January, February is where I'd be able to give you guys that information.
Good.
I have an operational question. One thing I would like to see here, and I don't know, this is the fire guy asking the cop guy a question, but one thing I'd like to see that we used to have, that we don't have anymore, that I think would possibly have value, but also liability, is a canine presence here.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that?
Who asked you that question? Because I'm going to talk to you.
Me. I haven't wanted that for a long time. But what is the cost of that? Ballpark?
It depends,
The cost-benefit ratio of that.
You got to look at you're taking an officer off of a rotating shift, which you could keep them on a rotating shift. I don't think that'd be necessarily a problem. You'd have to have a dedicated car, and the training. Where it gets expensive is the training and the dog itself, and it depends on what kind of dog you're looking at. And on average, you're looking at spending $12,000 to $15,000 for a working dog. Now, that depends on what kind of dog we're looking for. But first and foremost, what we need to focus in on is let's make sure that my heart of the police department is my patrol. Okay, so if I don't have enough numbers or enough officers to fill my patrol, then I can't start looking at other things like canine programs.
I guess is that something that would draw, when you're hiring, when you're putting people on,
Yeah.
is it beneficial, or is that a draw for potential new officers or laterals to come over and say, I've got...
I believe so, yeah, absolutely. I believe so. And I have full intentions of getting a canine at some point. I just have to, it's a kind of like a chess game, really. Sure. First and foremost, let's fill patrol so I have enough officers to respond to calls and be proactive. Secondly, I need detectives in there to make sure that they're investigating follow-up on the major crimes and taking care of the narcotics. And you start breaking it down. Okay, secondly, I know traffic is a big issue right now, so we got to get the traffic going. We have canine capabilities from other agencies that we can pull from. What I'd like to have my own, absolutely. I think it would be a definite draw to
my only thought with that was that I know sometimes you end up with, I have this much kind of budget surplus, so to speak, but to effectively hire, I've got to do it in your case, 4s to be most effective, to spread that across a shift. That's going to cost me this much. So if I can invest a little bit here, and maybe I can make an impact.
Yeah.
I don't, that was my thought, but
yeah.
I'm glad it's on the radar.
Yeah. It's within a 5-year goal that I've always had. When I took in this position, that was a 5-year goal of mine, is to get I'm on the clock. But yeah, it's been a goal of mine to obtain a canine, and I have an officer who hounds me on a daily basis about wanting to be a canine officer. Yeah,
it's not Gus, is it?
Yeah, it's not Gus. No, Gus is But,
yes, sir.
Last year, there was an issue about fully funding of the resource officer with the school district. What have you seen the volume there, and what's the school district's philosophy this year?
You're baiting me, aren't you? So as of right now, what I can tell you is that the school is funding the same portion as they did last year. Whether or not that continues, your guess is as good as mine. I've had a no. So it's been hard for me to sit there and pinpoint, yes, we're going to, or no, we're not. So at this particular point in time in my presentation to you tonight, is that money is there coming from the school, funding it. Does that answer your question?
Is that stable?
Volume, what's the demand been?
As far as
the workload in the schools increasing?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So therefore, another potential FTE issue at some point.
Yeah. The call out is from our SRO is he's responsible for the entire school district here in Lebanon, and Officer Domini is an extremely busy individual, and sometimes we have to pull from patrol to go respond to school calls because he's already tied up on another school call. So I would love to see an additional SRO as well. But again, that's part of my 7-year plan.
That's it.
That comes after the dog.
That comes after the dog. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just read an article.
I want you to know that I know.
I want you to know that I know. No, I just read an article about a program that the rescue dogs are being trained as canines. And so that's something I'm exploring, looking into that, because that would be very cost efficient and effective for our agency for this size. So
a joint arson crime dog.
Well, really, what we could do is a joint bomb sniffing arson dog.
Well, I thought you already had one. Wasn't it McDuff?
We have Gus, but he just sniffs out food.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, if someone's missing a sandwich or you guys are missing donuts or whatnot, you give me a call. I'll bring Gus out there and
Snickerdoodles and you're good.
yeah.
I know Officer Domini this week has had his hands full with the recent loss of a teacher. I just wanted to say thank you and commend him. I know he's been extremely busy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things. His role as far as the SRO isn't just responding to theft calls and whatnot. He's also out there, part of a counselor as well. So he wears many different hats, throughout his day. So again, he's busy. So.
Any other questions for Frank?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. I think the only other two things was 829 and 516. Was there's pages 200 and page 153, but there's been absolutely zero changes in those. So unless you guys have any further questions of me. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next, Senior Services. Kimbra.
Page 76.
Good afternoon. I'll start off with the Senior Center, General Fund 190, starts on page 76. Really, we're pretty much status quo, looking pretty similar to what we did last year. 2 FTE, it's myself and my activities coordinator, Rebecca. She's amazing.
I hear she does a mean newsletter.
She sure does. She sure does. But we have a lot of activities on the calendar. We're getting more response, more people coming in. So it's really great, even though we're status quo as far as what we have as far as FTE. We keep plugging away and doing what we can, offering more educational and cultural events and activities. So she's doing a great job. Any questions on the Senior Center? If not, I can move on to the Dial-A-Bus. That's Fund 569. It's on page 175. And again, no significant changes to speak of. As you know, I've been giving updates to council. You've seen it in the city manager reports. We're going through a transit development plan process. We should have a presentation come to council either June or July, waiting for that final date, and we'll bring a presentation to you along with a representative from Oregon Department of Transportation and their consultant. And we're looking forward to that as we'll be looking at implementing a new type of transportation service in town. I've talked about a deviated fixed route of some sort. It provides more efficient transportation. We'll probably see our general public population increase with ridership. Right now, our ridership is 95% seniors and those with disabilities. So there's definitely a population out there that we're not reaching, but we're hoping by implementing that fixed route, that deviated fixed route service along with the demand response, we'll see more riders be able to take advantage of the service. Obviously providing more efficient rides and still providing the demand response for those that need it. Have any questions on the Dial-A-Bus?
Yeah, you mentioned the high amount of seniors and people with disabilities using it. How much capacity do you have to handle other people in the community?
Honestly, we're really at capacity right now. I budget 2 drivers out there every day, 8 hours a day. And yesterday I had a third driver drive 7 hours. We provided 115 rides, I believe. Our average is right around 75, 80. But there are days when we get everybody that needs to get out there to do their banking or their medical appointments or what have you. So obviously if we're providing this other transportation service, demand will go down on the demand response side of things, and kind of hoping it will even out. Any other questions on the Dial-A-Bus?
So would that require another vehicle?
It will, and we have a grant to purchase one. It's in this current fiscal year, so we should have that, they're telling me, before June 30th. So, yes, that's a plan. The other thing I should mention about that vehicle is it will be able to accommodate 4 wheelchairs, whereas our current vehicles are only able to accommodate 2. So when we run into issues where we have 3 people out at Walmart that have a mobility device, we'll be able to get them all on board on that one vehicle.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions on Dial-A-Bus? Okay. The only other fund that I have is Fund 835. It's our Senior Center Trust Fund. It's on page 210. We received a large bequest in 2005, 2006, and we've really tried to hold on to that money and spend it very conservatively. And this helps us purchase some refreshments and things for the activities that we provide at the senior center, some equipment. Certainly there's a lot more that we'd like to see that we could purchase at the senior center. But again, we're really trying to hold on to what we have. So no significant changes there either.
Kendra, you recently had a retirement out there. Have we replaced that person or not?
We are in the recruitment process. We conducted interviews yesterday, so our hope is we'll have somebody in that position by the end of the month.
Okay, now will that keep you from having to sit in the chair there and answer the phone all afternoon or however long it is?
Well, that position is a 0.8 FTE, which gives us 32 hours at the front desk to do the dispatching and the scheduling. Certainly there's a need to have somebody there more than 32 hours a week. But we are just kind of making it work with myself and Rebecca and that dispatcher. We could certainly use more help at the senior center. It does get really crazy, but, we make it work.
Seems like you should be spending more time doing your own job rather than having to fill in there.
Oh, you're absolutely right. But, get there early and work a little late when I need to and make it work.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Kendra, for doing that.
You're welcome. I love what I do.
Okay. Thank you, Kendra.
Yes, you're welcome.
And Brent, for IT services. Here's where Paul pays attention.
I know. I wake up.
So we're at the end. I have two small departments or funds here, and I kind of manage them together. One's the 540 fund, the other is 542. 540 being GIS, 542 being IT. Really, the status quo of both those funds are pretty much the same as they were last year. Flyover was cheaper than we thought. I've reduced the funding for GIS because the technology is more advanced than the last time we did a flyover, and it's going to cost significantly less. And conversely, we added a little bit to the IT department just because of costs that go up. But other than that, we just trying to keep things going and keep the lights on and the computers running, and we'll be dealing with Jason's speaker here shortly. Any questions?
When is the flyover? Did that already happen, the flyover?
The flyover happened on April the 30th. Mm-hmm. And I know that you were out waving in front of a bank.
I wanted to know.
Well, you pretty much could have known, because how many days do we have rain?
Yeah.
And so the one day we had sun, bang, it happened. So if you got out and enjoyed the sun, you're on it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Wait, what did I do?
That's hard to say.
Oh.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll all see it on film.
Oh, great.
Hey, Brent, I'm not sure. We haven't had a chance to talk about this in a while. Have we moved to all virtual machines now in the city as opposed to PCs?
No, sir.
Okay.
We have.
Are we moving towards that, or?
We are. We're in a reactive mode right now. We're just literally trying to keep the wheels on things.
Okay.
So we have all virtual servers. We have the library is virtualized, and that has worked excellently. One of the best things we ever did, and we went with a non-Windows based system, so it's really a Linux based system, and that's just really nice. The equipment we have is older. It's like 2011 is our virtual equipment, and it's just not adequate enough to do virtual desktops for like engineering or dispatch. And so I had some funds this year. I was able to buy some storage that is faster, but that is a project in itself, and I think it's going to be between $100,000 and $150,000 to accomplish correctly. So the advantage of doing that is once we've got it implemented, and if it's implemented correctly, we can see savings in the management, and I think it's a good thing. The downside is it's a capital-intensive project, and we right now are hitting a lot of replacements that happened from the time the Justice Center was built, the library was built, and the senior center was renovated. And so we've been trying to address the network infrastructure upgrades that need to happen, as well as we also help the fire department. And part of that is they've been pretty aggressive in trying to clean up their infrastructure. And I'm trying to feather those two in so that we are upgrading stuff for the city and partnering with the fire so we can kind of provide that same platform to both agencies. So I don't see that happening. I did not build it into the budget this year. You know, in talking with Gary, he said we really needed to maintain the status quo. I don't have the capital funding available to do a virtual desktop solution this coming year.
Do you know about what the cost of that would be for citywide?
I think it would be about, it's going to run between $100,000 and $150,000, Paul, because we're looking at about $100,000 in equipment, and then you're talking $50,000 in software, and then the services to bring somebody in who's already done it successfully, because there's a lot of pieces in there that can go wrong. And the big thing that has changed recently is like for engineering who do CAD, and they do a lot of moving parts, 3D modeling. That's really come a long ways to where the capability is there now to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't have a question for him. I have other questions.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And just to note, the question I was asking is, virtual machines are kind of like the cloud, essentially. And what it does is it puts a computer on a person's desk, but it's just kind of a dumb terminal, and it's really all controlled by a main computer, kind of like a mainframe used to be in the old days. And what it does is it helps IT from the maintenance standpoint, where they can actually go in, they can just completely wipe out a person's desktop and rebuild it immediately if there's a virus. So there's all these things that really is efficient in the long run, in my opinion.
I wholeheartedly agree. The desktops are the last thing that need to be virtualized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was why I just wanted to mention that to council for the non-IT people.
So then the desktop replacements cost would go down?
They
You
would.
would have them. You would have these virtual, basically a terminal and a keyboard, basically. And then, yeah, so you don't have that replacement cost of those anymore.
And to address that directly, Bob, what we're doing is we're hitting like a 4 and 5 year life cycle on a lot of machines that need to be replaced, and I don't have the flexibility to just say just don't use anything or limp. So we've been just biting the bullet and replacing desktops as we need to, and at some point you need to draw the line and say, okay, we need to make that hop, but it's going to require additional capital in order to lay that out, set the table, so and you're coming in from a position of strength. Kind of like the water treatment plant, where you've got to have kind of something up to get you through until you're ready to go to this new system. So I did not put that in the budget this year. So.
I still would like to see that moving forward. I think that would be really a positive thing for the whole city, and
Understood.
especially for you guys too.
It would be a lifesaver.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there grant opportunities to get that funded?
I don't know.
Probably not.
I imagine there
Grants
will
for
be.
everything.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any.
I don't know of any. The grants, public safety, education, and public safety, including potentially fire too, if they were partnering on that, that's probably where we would go to look for those. I've talked with Jason. He's just been to some grant writing classes. That is not a strong area of mine, Bob. So, but I'm sure that there probably is some opportunities if we were to beat the bushes hard enough, at least to try for.
The only reason I brought that up is there seems to be an increased public safety emphasis from the federal government. So down the road, there may be some opportunities there.
Sure.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks. Okay. Next, approval of the FY 2017-18 budget and approval of taxes for FY 2017-18 at the rate of $5.1364 per 1,000 of assessed value for operating purposes, and in the amount of $1,520,135 for payment of bond, principal, and interest. Yes, sir.
I move that the City of Lebanon Budget Committee approve taxes for the 2017-18 fiscal year at the rate of $5.1364 per $1,000 of assessed value for operating purposes, and in the amount of $1,520,135 for payment of bond, principal, and interest, and forward the approved budget to the City Council.
So you need to do the approved budget as amended.
As amended to the City Council.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. At this point, I'm going to adjourn the Lebanon Budget Committee and I like doing that. Reconvene as the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency's Budget Committee. And first up is the FY 2017-18 Northwest URD budget presentation.
So I think he was going to pass it over to me, and so these are going to go real fast because I've already done them.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had I spoke about the 3 URDs a little while ago, so are there any further questions about the Northwest URD? Because the staff presentation's been completed.
Any discussion?
I moved the Northwest.
Go ahead. No, I was going to read.
The Northwest Lebanon URD or UR Agency Budget Committee approved tax for the 2017-18 fiscal year up to 100% of the amount from the Division of Tax and forward the approved budget as amended to the City Council.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
So real quick, on the next ones, we don't need the amended part. That's only if we've made changes, and I don't believe we've made any changes to the URD budgets.
We did not.
So these are only as approved.
I move that the Cheetah Lake Urban Agency Budget Committee approve taxes for the 2017-18 fiscal year of 100% of the amount from Division of Tax and forward the approved budget to the City Council.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Next would be for the North Gateway URD.
I move that the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee approve taxes for the 2017-18 fiscal year of 100% of the amount from the Division of Tax, forward the approved budget to the City Council.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes, and we will now adjourn. Thank you very much.
Wait, before we do, I just wanted to thank Todd, Virginia, and you for your continued work on the Budget Committee and coming out and spending your time. Appreciate it. And all the Budget Committee members. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, they get paid for it.
I know.
I know. So I don't know if you need to thank them.